Welcome back, everyone. In the last video, we leveraged npx to download the Create React app package to help us scaffold out our React project Monsters Rolodex. In this video, we're going to break down and take a look at all of the different folders and files that have been set up for us by Create React app. So let's go ahead and open up our project. And inside, what I want us to take a look at is the package.json file first. We see that there's a lot of these different files and folders that got set up for us, but let's just focus on the package.json file first. Package.json is a file that tells our application, or tells any developer looking at the application, what are the different libraries or packages that this project needs in order to work. All of this was set up for us by Create React app because Create React app knows what the minimum required packages are going to be in order to run a React application. And it's installed all of them for us, as well as a couple handy packages that make our lives easier. So if we look at it, what was installed for us in dependencies is that there's some testing libraries here, and these are really just ways that we can test the code that we write. We can take a better look at that later in the course. We're going to talk about testing very extensively. Right now, it's not important. We see that there's React and React DOM. Both of these are libraries that are very critical in order to run our React application, as well as React scripts and Web Vitals. This one I want you to ignore. React scripts is the main one that we want to focus on. React scripts is the kind of package helper that Create React app gave us so that it can make our life easier when it comes to doing all the different things we need to develop a React application. These React scripts are just different tools that help us leverage these new scripts that were generated for us. Start, build, test, and eject. What you'll notice is that they are just calling the React scripts library and then calling one of these commands. So React scripts was installed in order for us to actually leverage these scripts themselves. And what React scripts does is it helps us better build our application and develop against it using these 4 different commands. So let's start with start. What does start do? Start will take all of the files that we have written for our React application, and it will run them in a local development environment so that we can actually test it in the browser. So in order to run this, what we need to do is go back to our terminal and use your package manager. So I'm using Yarn. You can use npm. It's totally up to you. I prefer Yarn. And I'm just going to say yarn and then the name of the script, which was start. Now here you'll see that it said React scripts start. So this, of course, was what was inside of package.json for that script, which was start. So it actually runs the full command right here for us. And what you'll see is that it's starting the development server. So as I mentioned, what it's doing is it's taking all of the files that live under our source folder, the source folder being the entry point for the actual code that we're writing for React app. Inside, there's a bunch of these files that we're going to go over. But what it's doing is it's just taking all of this and it's building out the actual React application. And now if we go to our browser, we see that at localhost 3000, which is where React scripts start, hosts to the specific port on our computer of 3000, and it will show us our application. It's a very simple application. It's just a one page with a spinning logo and then some text. So let's understand what it is that React scripts start is doing for us. Going back to our project, we see that there's a source folder, and inside are all of these files that were built for us. These are the minimum files required in order to actually use React. So let's take a look at what's happening inside. The entry point for every React project is the index.js file. Just like any project, index.js just says that index being the first file that we want to look at, which is JavaScript related .js. This file inside imports a couple of these libraries that, again, Create React app is set up for us. The main one is React and React DOM. These 2 libraries are very critical in order for React to work. You want to see React as kind of the underlying engine. So it's the engine that actually does all of the work when it comes to how React functions as a website builder. Or not just a website builder, but essentially an application builder. Now, why do I say application? Well, this is where we look at the second library, React DOM. React DOM is related to the web, DOM being the document object model in web-related projects. So React DOM is these different tools that help us actually build web applications. React is the engine that runs how these applications get built. React DOM is specifying that that engine should be directed towards web-related applications. Though these two libraries combined is what actually allows us to build out all of our web application in React. So you might be wondering, well, is there other React-related libraries for building out other things? Of course. There's React Native, which is for native mobile applications. You might have heard of React Native. There's also a virtual reality application tool that you can build, also leveraging the React engine. So that's why for our web application, we want both React and React DOM. And both of these libraries get included with Create React App. We're going to deep dive into what each of these do a little later. For now, we just need to understand that they are provided for us and we need to leverage them in order to build a React application. We also import index.css, which is just a CSS file that is also built for us by default. There's this app, which we're going to take a look at a little later, and then this report web vitals. Again, we're just going to ignore the report web vitals. And what we're going to look at is the code right here. So what this is saying is that it is saying that we want to leverage this React DOM library and we want to render. So again, I don't want you to get too bogged down about these methods that get used because we're going to really deep dive into it later. But for now, what I want you to see is that all this is doing is it is rendering out this code right here. And inside of this is the app. Now, I want you to think of the app as the entire React application. We'll go into all the details later, but for now, conceptually, just understand app right here is our entire React application. This React.strict mode, this is something that Create React App has generated for us, and strict mode just means that inside, whatever's inside of this strict mode, these two tags here, you're going to essentially add these additional checks and warnings that React says in case you're using old deprecated code. So the reason for this is because React, of course, is at the latest version, which is 17 right now. 18 is just about to come out. And there are certain features that are being deprecated with these new React versions. Essentially, a lot of different teams are still using those old versions of the code. And strict mode just says, hey, there's certain things I don't want you to use. I want to be very strict about you not using some of those things. So what it's saying is that anything inside that's React related within this tag that says React.strict mode, I'm going to throw warnings about those specific things, or I'm just going to outright not let you use them because they're deprecated. Deprecating meaning that the React team doesn't support them anymore in the new version of React. So really that's all that's happening here. So React DOM, of course, is again the library, and it's saying, hey, I want you to render the application. But where do you render it? I want you to render it finding some document element with an ID of root. So where is this happening? Well, this is actually happening inside of the index.html. Now you might be wondering, where is our index.html file? This is actually inside of the public folder. So the public folder is also generated by Create React App for us. And index.html is like any index.html file in any application. It's just the base HTML file that represents the application's entry point. So in here, you of course have all your different head tag, your meta tags, and all of the typical web application related files that all get built for you, or not files, but necessarily, but the HTML components. And down here in the body, which is where I want you to focus, you'll see that there is this div. And this div has an ID of root. So what's happening here is that our index.js is looking for some element with an ID of root. And as we see in the index.html, this div has the ID of root. So what React is saying is, oh, I want you to take that div and I want you to replace that div and render into it our entire React application. And that's what this is doing right here. So that's pretty much how React actually works with HTML as a whole. In fact, you can actually easily see that, let's say we write something underneath here. Let's say we just add an H1 and inside I say, hello everyone. If I save this, what will happen, and one of the benefits of Create React App, is Create React App will actually rebuild our application for us. And what we'll see now is that it is updated. And down here, you see the hello everyone text. So what you'll notice though, is that this is living outside of our React application. And this is perfectly normal because again, this index.js file is doing is it is saying, oh, what I want you to do is I want you to find some element with the ID of root and essentially render inside of it this React application. So that's what's happening right here. But below it is another perfectly valid HTML tag with an H1. It just doesn't have to live inside of our React application. So it lives outside of it directly as a sibling, which is why you see right here, this is living outside of our React app. So that's what I want you to understand about React. React is just some way for us to actually just build React applications into an HTML file. But that doesn't mean that all of the other HTML is not valid. No, it's perfectly valid. You just have to understand that everything lives inside of whatever you're rendering, which in our case is all within the app. Now, throughout the course, we will break down what each of these libraries do, and we'll take a much deeper dive. But for now, I just want to give you a high-level idea of what it is that Create React App has set up for us, as well as how React kind of works at a very high level, without diving too deep into these details. So that's all I want you to think about for now. In the next videos, we are going to break down what some of these files actually represent that Create React App has given us, and we're also going to continue looking at those other 3 scripts that come in package.json. So with that in mind, I will see you in the next video.